Almost there, probably 15 more seconds.
So by the way, how long will it run?
We're going to try and be as brief as possible. I know I said 1 hour, but the questions is just 3 each, and we're going to try and, be as short as we possibly can.
Okay, that's fine.
And 2 for me.
Not yet. Okay, so, all right, so we're live, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. We're having a bit of a problem connecting the other 2 speakers, so I'm just trying to help them out on this side. But I think now that we're live, we can probably just start on with the program and just get onto it. They'll probably join in again. Network can always be an issue, but they can always join in, as we move ahead. So allow me to, first of all, just introduce those who are here, who've been able to log in while the other 2 try to essentially just log back in. So thanks a lot, Lolo, and please allow me to call your full name first, because I love all of them, and then I'll stick to the one I like. So Gomolemo Lolo Madikgetla from Botswana. I call her Lo, and thank you for making the time to join us today. I know that we had spoken about this conversation, a while ago, but we've been struggling to frame it, and we were not really quite sure about, how we can actually sort of get to position this type of talk. But I'm glad that we've been able to finally sort of get in and also bring in some of the forces from parts of the continent so we can officially talk about this as women. Allow me to also introduce a lady from Kenya. Her name is Pauline Kiraithe. Pauline, I will, share profiles a little bit later as soon as our guests are able to join in. But thank you for making the time as well to join us, this afternoon, and to talk about some of the things that are probably, so important and so key to some of the things that we are facing as women. So without, wasting any more time, allow me to also just introduce our theme today. We've decided to really sort of delve a little bit deeper into the question of skills. And I think mainly because, there's so much talk and rhetoric that's currently happening across the continent in terms of, why women should be at the forefront, and not necessarily why women should be at the forefront, but when they are in the forefront and in the center, what is it that they should be doing? And I'm quite happy that we're able to, today bring forth a discussion that essentially looks at reinforcing African pride so that we are able to talk about advancing skills to serve the continent. I do beg for your pardon. I'm still trying to accept our speakers on my side here. They seem to be having an issue with our network. Can I ask that we perhaps just pause for a minute so we can quickly help them out so they can get back in, because it's conflicting between WhatsApp and what they're doing. So allow me on my side just to pause for a second, help them out, and I'll be back shortly so we can try and find out what's happening.
Okay.
All right, thank you for the patience. I think it's something we may have to move on without. Thanks a lot for the patience. Pauline, let me just get into it and start with you when you're ready. You're an HR leader. You're also an executive leader in basically you do much of executive leadership and career coaching. You're an entrepreneur and you're also a founder and managing consultant of Talent Gurus. So obviously your space within the human resource fraternity has been quite extensive, over 20 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And you've obviously seen the number, or rather the landscape, that skills have taken a turn in the continent, especially when we constantly using the benchmark of, the global competitive edge, and also looking into how, Africa can advance itself. So tell us, as an HR leader, you've pretty much navigated most of the NGO sector. You've been in telecoms, you've been in retail and media industries. How do you think women have possibly risen to the challenge of business leadership specifically over the past decade? And what are some of the challenges, maybe even opportunities, that you can share with us today?
Okay, thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so over the years, there's been an increase in terms of the number of women who've been getting into leadership. But I can't say that we've gotten to the ideal numbers yet. Yeah, so if we look at the decision-making positions, which are finance and which are the CEO positions mostly, as well as also the sales and marketing dockets within organizations, if you look at how many women are holding those positions, you will be able to see that we still do not have proper gender balance in those positions. So as I was looking through, I looked at, there's a report that was done in 2016 around Women Matter across Africa. It was an Africa survey. And they saw that the number of women who are holding CEO positions were only 5% across Africa. If you go into politics, you see there are only 22% of ladies also holding cabinet positions. And then there were about 25% holding parliamentary positions. So if you can see the numbers, we still even haven't reached like for our country, our target is to at least reach 30%. So you can see across Africa, these numbers are quite low. Yeah. And if you see even the number of women who have been promoted across organizations,
yes,
the number was actually 36%. And when you even look at how many women are in senior positions, line positions, this is where we see majority of the women are playing. Yeah, 44% of the women were holding line positions. Unfortunately, line positions are good, yes, that's managerial positions. They are good because obviously it's the positions that would lead you into the leadership roles, but we need to start seeing more women moving into the top leadership roles. And there are various factors as to why you'll see fewer women in those positions. Number one was basically how we selected our careers. Yeah. Majority of the ladies ended up going to helping careers and avoided careers that were either science-based or mathematical or finance-based. Yeah. So that was that's been one of the key contributors, but I've seen a lot of initiatives over the past decade where more and more women now are being encouraged to take science-based courses. And we have a lot of forums locally and even across Africa where we're seeing a lot of encouragement of women to move into more tech as well as business roles. I think the other bigger, you can tell me where to stop.
That's fine. You can go ahead and give us.
Yeah, another challenge was, I think, just basically the sexual stereotyping of roles. Yeah, that led into career selection. Yeah. So I think there are certain roles that were meant to be for women. So if you go into catering, if you go into the hotel industry, that's where you'll find the ladies. If you go into the nursing, that's where you'll find more ladies. But if you go into business, finance, yeah, this is where you'll find fewer and fewer ladies being represented in the tech roles and also in the engineering roles. Yeah, but so this is a narrative we are trying now to change, because unfortunately, if we do not get the ladies into roles that
matter,
influence the decision making in the organization, then the women won't be represented at those top positions. So in terms of even business leadership, that's where you'll find that we have fewer ladies who will be sitting at that level. And then another key observation I also realized is that as you go up the career ladder, the women start reducing. So more and more women, as the higher you go, the fewer women remain within the corporate scene. Reason being, one of the key challenges more of the double role. We're the nurturers, we're the mothers, we're the ones taking care of the homes. And there's a point where, especially when the children lives school life is becoming more demanding and they require the supervision, you'll find the woman is the one who tends to take a break from her career to nurture the children first before re-entering back into the corporate world. So by the time you re-enter,
it's a different,
so those are the few observations. For me, I'm seeing the challenges, and unfortunately they keep repeating themselves. Because we can't separate ourselves also from the other roles at home.
I really want you to, sort of just put a hold on that aspect. It's very important, Pauline, and I want us to get back to it a bit later on to talk about how women take this time off to do this care work, unpaid care work, and later come back. But Lo, in Botswana, can I just bring you into the conversation and quickly just to give context to those people who are watching us. Gomolemo Lolo Madikgetla is a founder of UNGWA Africa and Flemark Holdings. She's also the Wedo Country Ambassador, TEDx curator, and a board director who essentially sits in a number of boards, particularly in investments and the arts sector. Now, if you take some time and please try to, really get into the depth of her profile, you'll find that most of her expertise lie within the impact that she's making in terms of, board leadership. And one of the questions I've actually stretched to, Pauline in terms of women engaging in business leadership, particularly in the arts. But with her, I want to quickly just bring her in and probably ask her, Lo, your experience is over 10, 15 years, same as Pauline. You guys are sitting on solid experience, industry experience. You have worked across various sectors in the corporate sector, in the investment banking sector, amongst others. These are not just the only two. And in most of these roles, in your instance, you are often required to have a very strong strategic advisory and leadership acumen. Now, we know that the world, for some reason, still think that women don't have this, but you have been in these positions and you've obviously, shown the essence of how you can uphold this. Now, my question to you is, based on this immense experience that you have, what do you think women still need to offer in order to strengthen the impact that they can make or the impact that they can have in various sectors, and how they can actually improve representation and probably even participation? I don't like the word participation, but what's your take on what they can do across key leadership roles in these, just across the spectrum from where you're sitting? Okay.
Apologies, I was on. Thank you so much, Jabu. I truly believe that true integration or successful integration and development of any society should be measured by the inclusion of women in that particular process. And to go back to your question to say what women should and possibly shouldn't do in order to participate in different positions, I have different takes. So first and foremost, it's very important to clearly understand the economy in which you're operating, the community in which you're operating, understand where the needle movers are. Know what's important in your own country, in your own continent. Understand what's happening in the rest of the world. Because once you have that big picture, the next most important thing is understanding where you fit in and how you want to fit in. What are you doing? What are you not doing that you want to do? and what are the necessary transferable skills required to get the work done. You know, Professor Clay Christensen, may his soul rest in peace, talks about understanding the jobs to be done. And it's very, very important. I'm going to bring it also into the context of where we are with the pandemic. It's very important that we know right now where we are, what is critical. Not what are we good at, not what do you know best, not what have you done in the past decade and what you've won awards with. What is the critical job that needs to be done, and how is it that you can participate in that? That gives you a better picture, because it allows you to be open to change. But something that's very, very important is to approach this with the viewpoint that as a woman, you are enough. You are enough. You are operating in an environment where there's gross inequity and inequality, but you are enough. And that as a starting point is very important, because when you understand, when you know that you are enough, you know your strengths. You know how to play to your strengths. When you know your strengths, it comes easier for you to build others. And when you can build others, you are able to create a community. When you know your strength, you understand what may need augmentation in what you're doing as an individual, as an organization. And that drives you to what? To partnerships, to collaboration. And in being enough, it's not to say that you can do everything or you should even consider doing everything. It's to say, this is my strength. This is what I need from other people. And therefore, this is why I need to belong to a certain community, a community that grows you, a community in which you also can add value. And in knowing your strength, you grow without trying to nullify the next person. And as you grow in and this does not only have to be in corporate, and as you grow, your aim is not to step on other people so that you can be seen more. The aim is to lift others as you run. And that's the very, very important thing. Knowing yourself allows you to lead better, to lead with empathy, to lead to drive resilience, to lead understanding the needs of those around you. So for me, that's very, very important. And it's when you know yourself that you're not depending on external validation from who and what you are. But when you link knowing yourself with the jobs to be done, you are able to honestly understand where you can bridge the gap. And look, bridging the gap does not always mean you have to be going to the next fancy business school. Sometimes bridging the gap is simply understanding who's doing something that you're interested in, that you can learn from, and humbly approaching the space with an eagerness to know so that you can contribute better. Does that make sense, Jabu?
Yep, we hear you. And if, again, you know, you've mentioned some of the most interesting points about resilience, and I can sense there's so much more that from where that comes from. And I want us to, again, just touch a little bit on it. So please pencil it in your mind, because I want us to visit their idea of resilience for women in corporate, especially for women who are sitting on boards. And I know that you'll be able to give perspective in this regard, because this is your world. Ashaba is from Uganda, and Ashaba is a pilot. And I've got some interesting questions for Ashaba. I hope that she's able to, perfect, we have her on. I know we had some challenges with the technology this afternoon. Ashaba, thanks for joining us. So, I mean, you are in an interesting field, which I think for me was quite an eye-opener. And again, perhaps this reaction I have should not be the correct one, because we do need to get to a point where when a woman is a pilot, it should absolutely be okay, and there should be nothing bizarre about that. You know, we should make this big noise about, oh, she's a pilot, oh, she's a head of this and that. So, but I guess also out of, you know, just the pride, really, we get to be so proud to see, you know, an African sister rise to particularly male-dominated, you know, places. So my question to you is, I mean, over the years, one thing for sure is I'm not very much, you know, in tune with the aerospace sector, but I know that a number of Black women have been making inroads into the airspace sector across the continent, which has been great. There's some women we saw from Zimbabwe a while ago, who, you know, were being sort of championed as one of the first few to be pilots and so forth. There's you in Uganda, and you're fairly young. Now, my question to you is, what initially sparked this interest, and what are some of the challenges that you encountered?
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I had some problem. I had to update the app, and that's when it was able to work. It's still, I would say we are still not so many. If I'm speaking from my country's perspective, I think we are under 10 lady pilots, and the ones who are working are about maybe 6 or 7, and maybe the ones who are in school are still very few. There are not many, and it is something that I didn't always want to be, because I didn't actually know that we had pilot training in Uganda. You know, when you're growing up in Africa, when you're asked, the thing that you say is you want to be a doctor or a lawyer. These are the professions every African wants to be as a young child. I know I used to say that I want to be a doctor, but as you grow up, the narrative changes, because there's so many things that happen around you that inspire your future. So I think after my high school, I went to do a diploma in flight operations at an aviation school in Uganda. And when I was there doing my diploma in flight operations and management, I was able to, you know, the first day at school, we were able to have orientation, and then we were going around school, and I saw a plane land, and a lady came out, and there was something so inspiring about seeing her walk out of that plane, and, you know, just holding her own. And I knew I wanted to be that. There was something about her that really inspired me, and that is how my entire narrative changed. And now I'm a pilot. It took some time, because I didn't know that women could actually fly planes, and it took me seeing her flying. And that is why I always emphasize having relatable role models, because it took me seeing her do that to know that even I can do that. Even I, a Ugandan, could do that. So when I did see her, and then when we did talk, I realized that, you know, she wasn't so different from me. We are women, we all have the same problems here and there. And I knew that I could be that. So I started chasing becoming a pilot. And yes, here we are now. And about the question of aerospace and women in aerospace, I don't know so much, and I don't really think, because aerospace is a broad spectrum. Aviation, maybe you could look at planes and that, but aerospace, you're going into NASA, you're going into other planets, the universe, and all this. So I don't know about the aerospace in general, and I don't really know if we really have any plants here that do that, especially in Uganda. But when it does come to aviation, I do know that it is something that we are still trying to get there, especially in even the African section. There are not so many lady pilots. I've made some friends in different parts of Africa, ladies at that, and you could see that there are still not many in their different sectors. They're still having some challenges. And I think one of the challenges are, if you're to be realistic about the African setting, is women, as one of our panelists said earlier, women are brought up to be mothers, you know, child bearers, stay at home. You're not supposed to go out and do this. So we are just right now trying to get into the work sector. We are just right now trying to break into these different barriers. So when you bring a lady pilot on top of that, then definitely that is going to be quite challenging. So you're going to have, I have had people who, or when I was in school, actually, you would have, because it's a male dominated profession. So when you do have women, you're going to have people trying to pass off your skills as someone who's just maybe favored because she's a woman, or maybe they're going maybe kind on you because you're a lady, or maybe you're sleeping with the people who are putting you in that particular position. Like, I feel like with women, people are going to do everything to try and explain why you are where you are. It's never going to be you worked hard. It's never going to be you're smart enough. It's always going to be someone was kind, someone passed off, that they were gentle on you because you're a woman. You've slept with your boss to get where you are, which is very ridiculous, by the way. And I don't know why people always use that. So it's always going to be someone trying to explain why you're there. It's never going to be because you deserve it or because you worked hard for it or because, this is what you're supposed to have. So there is still a challenge, and we still have a challenge. And it's sad because it does not only affect, women in Africa, it affects women in aviation in general, where people see you as just a sex symbol and not someone who's bringing something to the table like them, because flying is practical. If we can both fly that plane, it means we are both smart enough, and we both know what we are doing. So yeah, the challenges are there, but I always say one thing: if you're good at your job, just do it. Let your job speak for you. You're not going to waste your time proving people, trying to say I didn't do this or this. Just do what you're good at and let your work speak for you.
Yeah, I like that. And I want to, again, there's a point I'm going to come back to towards the end when you give your insights and how we talk about women who, when they've achieved something, it's either they know a certain person who's helped them move up the ranks and so forth. And I want us to talk about the challenge because it's a very problematic challenge, which takes away a lot from women and the actual capacity and capability as equally gifted human beings. And Pauline, I want to drive this to you again within the HR space. You would obviously know quite a number of this as well. I mean, as much as there are processes and protocols you've got to follow, you obviously come in across a lot of instances where a nudge tells you, as a woman leader in HR, and you perhaps are looking at certain women with skills linked to certain sort of jobs, do you also just tick the box in the sense that it's an African woman, I'm going to pull her through no matter what, I know she'll be fine, this is a sister? Or, is it critical that you really match the skills that are needed to the competencies that a person has? Just as an HR person in your world, when you would come across something like that, what do you do? Do you just tick a box, or do you really try to match merit to the skills that are needed at the time? I think Pauline is a bit, she's might have frozen.
Yes. Sorry, you're talking about in recruitment, isn't it? Sorry, you're talking about recruitment, isn't it? When you are recruiting, no? Jambu?
Yes, she was. I'm not sure if she can pick you, but I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so in terms of recruiting individuals for organizations, yes, it's very important to recruit the right person for the role. Yeah, and looking at the right person, we look at people's experiences as well as also their education background. Yeah. And for me, even in the role, ensure that the right candidate gets it. And it's not a matter of the gender, but the right person who fits the role. Yeah. So even where people say that, yeah, women have been given roles because we're trying to meet a gender mark, we try to get the best lady for that role. Yeah. So it's not a political, it's not a political exercise where we're trying to fit people into roles and trying to meet a certain quota system. No, we always try to ensure that the right person holds the right position, because even when you put the wrong people in the role, they don't even end up staying in those roles for long. So why don't you do yourself justice, save the organization money, and also save the person face by not giving them a role that obviously they will not do well in. So for us, we always try to match the right people into. And one advice I always give people, even as you're managing your own career, I always tell people, even in my organizations and even in the past organizations I've worked in, and the people I coach, people that you gaining the right qualifications, that's the easier bit, of the whole game. When you're in the career, when you're trying to build your career, and when you're in the competitive world of work, you getting your qualifications is the easier bit. Yeah, you getting the experiences is the easier bit. Yeah, so do your part so that at least when you get onto the table, people will not have time to even doubt your qualifications and even your background. Your experience should speak for itself. And even when you sit on that table, and even when we get to these high leadership positions, you will be able to speak out of experience. Yeah, and with hindsight. And they say hindsight is 2020. So we say, for me, I encourage people, do the easier bit, which is where I tick the boxes individually first before you garner for these positions. Jabu, can you hear me? Jabu, I'm done.
I'm not sure if she can hear you, but I'm gonna ask. I can hear you, and I think there's still people on the line. I'm going to ask you, given the sharp shift due to the recent pandemic, COVID-19, what has been your experience, or what is your advice with regards to reskilling and upskilling as an HR expert?
Yes. So when this pandemic happened, for me, it took me a while to just understand. And I like the way what you said, Gomo, to understand the new terrain. You need to understand the new terrain. Yeah, so for me, I even did a series the other day on just my learnings of this season. And one of the key things is you need to understand how the game has changed. Because I think the terrain has completely changed now. Yeah. And the other thing is also, I know a lot of people think it's a bad thing, but I actually think that the introduction of the 4IR and digitalization of everything has actually leveled the playing field for all of us. Yeah, because before, for you to even introduce a product in the market, it would be such a painful process and very expensive. But now we're all on social media. So the field, as a career person, you need to first understand the terrain and how it has changed. So number one, what you did, and I like what you said, what you did in the past century is not what is going to make you win in the next decade. Yeah. So the skill sets are completely going to change and have actually changed. So if you have an aversion for technology, and if you have an aversion for social media, well, going forward, that is going to be our mainstay. You need to understand, you need to embrace, yeah, and you need to take them up as work tools, because I think even it's made life easier. Before, we would have had to meet somewhere, maybe South Africa, to have this meeting, isn't it? But look, we're having a meeting across in our comfort of all our homes, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So I think number one, we need to embrace the new skill sets. The second thing is, nobody is an expert going forward. So actually, I was telling, we're moving to a resume-less decade. So even where we are moving to, nobody has experience in where we are moving. So we're all learning together. So your acumen to learn fast, to change fast with the time is what is actually going to differentiate you. Yeah, but I think it all starts with you understanding how we're actually changing and how the world has changed. Then I think the thing is transition fast. Learn how to use these tools, transition fast, and see now how will you transfer the skill sets and the skills that you had, yeah, and which other new skills do you need to acquire for you to become effective in the new world? Because I think the skill sets are completely changing. So if I give you a rundown of a few of the skill sets, data literacy is going to be key. Yeah, they say data is going to be the fuel for the fourth industrial revolution. Yeah, so if you do not understand data, and you cannot crunch data, because even organizations now are making decisions using data. So data analysis, data presentation, data understanding, data literacy are one of the key skills that are going to go forward. The other key thing is flexibility and adaptability. How do you change? Like right now, we've all been put in a completely different change work model. How quickly are we adjusting to these new changes? Yeah. So how flexible are you to work from home? How flexible are you to even work later than you used to? Because if we decide in our mindsets that we only work between 8 and 5, well, the world has changed. Yeah. So we need to change our mindsets. Creativity. Yeah, that's another key skill. So you have to now bring out your best game. Your best game has to be on. Yeah, creativity, because now the most creative people are the people who are going to win in this. And creativity in the sense of, are you bringing in solutions to problems that we are seeing in the world? Yeah, because basically that's what entrepreneurship, that's what leadership is all about. Yeah, one day problem. So are we thinking creatively? Are we inspiring others to think creatively? Yeah, are we going to carry others with ourselves as we move forward? And then I think the most key one is emotional intelligence, because the other thing for me I realized through this transition is it's been also a traumatic experience for most of us. I think for everybody. Yeah, just looking at how many people have died, how many people it's been a traumatic experience. Even the worry of wondering if you have it because we've not tested, or if people have contracted it. So it's been a traumatic, emotionally challenging experience. So emotional intelligence is going to be also another key skill going forward. Yeah, your ability to understand your emotion and manage it, but also your ability to understand other people's emotions and also manage them, especially for people managing teams. This is not the point where you're focusing on just delivery, but you also need to care about the person holistically so that you're able to carry the whole team together and get results. So this is a point where leadership has to come to the fore. And yes, great leaders are the people who will be able to influence others going forward. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Great, thank you so much. Very insightful.
Thank you. So Jabu is...
you ladies can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay.
We can see you, we can hear you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I don't even know what's happening. So I'm just going to carry on with the questions. I have no idea what technology is doing this afternoon. Pauline, I would take it that you had most of the questions. I really want to bring Christine into the conversation as somebody who's got the power of the pen. Christine, I hope you are able to see me and hear me. I really connection this afternoon, but I want us to really just share your experience with us. I mean, you as an Ethiopian woman who is a journalist by profession and have pretty much traveled the world. As we speak right now, you are in London working for BBC, but I want us to really try and get to the point of how we position Africa as a narrative, especially for people of the spoken word, us, your poets and your writers. What responsibility do we have in this regard of being able to position Africa the most dignified way possible? From your experience, what would you share with us in that instance?
Right. So first of all, I think the right thing to do would be to start apologizing for landing a bit later than expected into the conversation. I don't think I've ever had this much technical problems in my life, but I've finally made it, and thank you for waiting. And thank you for bringing me into the conversation, Jabu. I really, really appreciate it. I think really as an African writer and journalist, the responsibility is real, and there is a weight that comes with the pen, as you say. The lessons I've learned so far is, if I can put them in like 3 main bullet points, would be never to dim the light for no one. Never to silence your voice for anything, and to make sure that, we fight for the stories and for the things that we believe in. And as being able to work on a platform such as the BBC, it's really about the perspective that we bring in. I can't say that there's a wrong way of telling stories, but there's definitely a right way of telling them. So far we've come from, other people coming into the continent, and by other people, I mean non-Africans coming into the continent and telling the stories of the African continent to the rest of the world. It's a great thing that has been done so far, because it has brought to light stories that needed to be told and shared to the rest of the world. However, there's always a difference when someone that's not from the continent holding the camera lens or even holding the microphone, as opposed to someone that is from the continent that's holding the camera lens and the microphone, because obviously our focuses are going to be different. And I think I commend the BBC for having started, so many local language services from under the World Service programs. From the past, 3-4 years, we've now been actively working and covering stories of the continent in our own local languages as well. It kind of changes the perspective, and it allows the rest of the world to actually look at the stories that really matter from the people that are living the story. Yeah. And I don't know if you had another question for me.
I do have another question for you, but I want us to park on that one for a bit. I want to ask Ashaba something before I also go to Lolo. Ashaba, I want you to really be honest about the journey in your end, because I know, for example, some of the mentees that I mentor, they've got great aspirations and great plans, and they, for example, we even saw your post and we're so keen to join into the conversation and pretty much hear what some of the challenges are that you have been able to face on your side. And I think I just want to perhaps bring that forth so they can feed a little bit from that. I mean, you obviously haven't, reached the heights, as people say, your best sort of achievements are as best and as good as your last ones. And you pretty much still spearheading in the space. But the fact that you're in and that you've got these ideas of wanting to carry on is still a good idea. And this is precisely what inspires them. So I want you to please just share with us and possibly those younger ones watching, what are some of the struggles that you feel Africa is struggling with in terms of sustaining innovation? I know you may not necessarily be as very deep into innovation, but just by virtue of your sector, it is quite very, it's quite innovative in its sense, very sort of cutting edge and that sort of thing. What do you think we need to perhaps do to sustain the urge for innovation beyond being told, be tenacious and be bold? What have been some of the insights you found that are linked to your difficult male-dominated field?
Thank you. And I'm actually, when you did say innovation, and I'm not deep in innovation, I just realized that recently I'm learning the word of innovation, because I think last year I was selected among the 9 women. And what they were doing, UN Women was celebrating 9 women innovators. And I was the only African in this particular group. And I was so confused. And I reached out because they said they were going to put the posters everywhere. And I was featuring with these amazing ladies who have innovated. So I asked, are you sure you've not made a mistake? To which they replied, no, we're looking at innovation in all spectrums. So it's not only limited to technology, or it's not only limited to inventing a phone or maybe the next best machine. It goes beyond that, and it's a great spectrum. And I would like to add that one of the reasons why we do not have I think one of the challenges personally, what I've realized or through what I've been doing, is that we do not have enough support for our fellow Africans. And this is very, very common, because if a fellow African maybe puts out a product, we are going to always support a Western product over an African product. And we have this thing whereby we pull each other down. I know it sounds cliche, and I actually hate myself for saying that, but this is the truth. We have this thing where we pull each other down so much Because if I'm to even ask the ladies who are here, who are on this panel right now, you'll find out that all the recognition that you've been able to get, or all the awards that you've been able to get, are going to be from the Western world. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to find that you've been recognized outside your country so much more than you've been recognized by your fellow countrymen. And it's so weird, because your fellow countrymen will then realize that you have something important to add to what they have after the Western world has recognized you. It's like the Western world certifies you and says, okay, now this is the person. And now your country now says, oh, we want this person to speak here. We want this person to influence us, or something like that, which is very ridiculous. And it's a very common thing happening. I feel like we need to change our mindset, and we need to support our very own. And Africans need to stop always looking for outside and external help or external funding. We are relying so much on external funding, and I'm not saying it's bad, but I feel like we are relying on it so much that without it, we do not have anything we can do of our own. And it's really, really sad, because if you look even at the current situation, and maybe this is a bit of controversy or something like that, we are receiving so much funding for the pandemic situation from so many countries, yet Africa has the least cases. But these other countries have people who are suffering in their own countries, but somehow it is safer to give the funding to Africa. Why? Because Africa can't help themselves. They can't imagine the crash that is going to come and affect Africans. Africans are going to be dying, they're going to be suffering. It's already, we're like those little babies that always need to be fed, always need to be given something, because we rely so much on this. And even when something wrong happens, we can't say anything. Our leaders can't say anything, or the funding will be pulled. So we have been reduced to that level of, I give you this, I implement my, my rules on you, you can't do anything about it. And I feel like we need to change that. We need to ride out of that mindset and know that us as Africans have the power to do the things that we want. But besides the outside external forces, we as Africans need to support our very own. If someone comes up with something, let us support our very own first. Let us not always pull each other down and always see it as competition. And it's so ridiculous when, you feel like you're better off, this country is better than this other country. Well, the Western world does not see us as Uganda, Botswana, South Africa. They just see us as Africans. They don't see us as different. Yet here we are pulling each other down. We are thinking this is better, these ones are smarter. And I feel like this needs to change. For me, this is what I've been seeing. And this is some of the things that I've been doing through my foundation, is when we have been going to these local areas and we have been trying to inspire young girls, it has been going beyond just donating to them things. We have been teaching them different hands-on skills, because we wanted to create that sustainability, create sustainable communities where they're supposed to, look at themselves and know that, okay, I learned something, I can do this thing and I can get money out of it, rather than wait for people to always come and donate, because no one is going to look after your child for you. We have had this situation, and this is why I really feel like this mindset has to change, whereby most of the people in rural areas are so used to non-profit organizations that when they see them as saviors, and they feel like their problems are done. So whenever we reach there, and whenever my non-profit goes there, whenever reach there, the first thing that they'll say, a mother will have a child and will be like, oh, can you look after my child for me? Can you pay for my child's school tuition? And the first thing that I always tell them is, this is your child. You gave birth to this child. Why would someone outside come and look after your own child? You have to learn to look after your own child. You have to learn something that is going to be sustainable and pull you through the entire time. And this is the thing that has been happening. We have been teaching them sustainability. We have been looking at sustainable communities. But above everything else, everyone has a personal responsibility to give back to their own society. You have to be the change you want to see. You can't always complain about the government not doing this, not doing that. What are you doing as a person, as an individual? If you're 10 people complaining, if each and every one of you does something, the problems that you're complaining about are soon going to vanish. We all have a personal responsibility.
Yeah. Okay. So I need you to literally just hang on there for a second for me, because I know it's a very heated debate and I know you really love this, but I want to chip in quickly to other speakers and just get some of the few key things out of them And just hold on to that thought towards the end. Lo, I need to bring you in on this one. I think this is so key, and we would have done injustice when we have not addressed this particular aspect. You know, when we tap into your unique leadership sort of skills and acumen, and also just the entrepreneurship space that you lead and have led for a number of years, we've seen that all African women are working very diligently. They've been able to establish aggressive strategies and pretty much stay at par, you know, with the global market with regards to marketing and all of those things. Now, my question to you is, do you think, you know, what do you think we should be focusing on, and what kind of Africa-inspired marketing strategies do you think will help us nurture some of the problems that obviously even came out of what Ashaba was mentioning? What do you think we can do in that space, in your view?
Thank you, Jabu. Just relating to what she was saying a bit later, but I would like to address your question first, which is, what should we be focusing on? What you focus on determines your future. It's very important. My point of reference is the Bible, and a key example is Joseph in the wilderness, and being ill-treated by his boss, and his decision to use what he has to creatively change his circumstance, which resulted in a bountiful harvest. So for me, with regards to focus, it's very important that you are delivering meaning. It's important that when somebody thinks of Jabulile, they understand the meaning that Jabulile brings in to their particular environment. Earlier on, I spoke about understanding the jobs to be done, knowing your strengths and knowing when to collaborate, when to stand alone. And it's important that as you focus on delivering meaning, you are understanding the environment in which you're having to deliver meaning. Delivering meaning is about being inclusive. It's about being very deliberate about clarity, being very clear about what it is that you are wanting to measure. Understanding what problems you are solving is very, very important. Right now, as you do what you do, whose problem are you solving? We have to drive to a point where it's more about the solutions we are bringing more than the complaints around the problems that we are facing. And right now, there's a whole, you know, there's the pandemic paranoia, there's propaganda, there's all sorts of fake news, there's all sorts of people are going through all sorts of, you know, are squeezing through hoops to trend, because everybody wants a point of relevance. But it's important that we choose to be relevant by delivering meaning. And delivering meaning has to be in alignment with addressing core issues. Earlier on, I spoke about understanding what is happening in our environment, what the visions are, the visions that have been set, as well as the vision that we have the ability to play part in. If we're talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which we have just a decade to reach, how are we clearly playing a role such that it's worth it for the international community to listen, because it's in the global context? The Africa Union is talking about Agenda 2063, which is really about driving prosperity. What role are we playing in our everyday work, in our everyday jobs, in our everyday offerings? And it's when we're able to be a part, ideally lead the narrative, but it's when we're able to step into the arena and play a part, a solid part, a very clear role, that it's now visible what it is that you are doing. Jabulila, you've created a platform right now, and we're conversating, but it's not synonymous with the talk is cheap. It's conversation intended to drive change. What change? What are we wanting to change? What problems are we solving? So it's very important that in focusing, we are clear about knowing our strengths. We are clear about the problems we are solving. We are clear about the data. Now, earlier on, I'm not sure which of my colleagues mentioned it, but Yuval Harari says it well. He who owns the data owns the future.
Yeah.
And earlier on my colleague who's the pilot, she mentioned that she doesn't have as much information around her industry, as well as her surprise when she was called and told that she's innovative. And I started earlier on by knowing yourself. By knowing yourself, you're not being vain, you're understanding your strengths, you're understanding your value proposition, you're understanding what you stand for and what it is you're solving. You're understanding but by being a pilot, you are encouraging a whole stream of generations about choosing a certain direction based on the direction that you have boldly entered, which was previously perceived as male dominated. Mm-hmm. So focus on quality data is very important. And as women, what comes naturally is for me, the picture is bearing a child. And I mentioned earlier that my reference point is the Bible. Earlier on, my Bible study was Isaiah 54, which is "Sing, O barren woman, who has not yet borne a child, break into song and joy." And it's really about understanding what you carry inside before the world outside sees it. And the reason why I'm bringing bearing in is that as Africans, we are quality storytellers. We are known for our great stories. We're known, and stories have an ability to pull an audience in. How amazing will it be if as storytellers, we are bringing the audience of the world in and telling them how to do things better in the world? Earlier on, there was the complaint about why we're receiving aid and all sorts of things coming into the country. It is because there are all sorts of reasons, including political, but part of that is that things are coming in because we are not producing as much, or we are failing to identify that which is being produced in country. Why are we not changing the narrative, changing the stories? I came across a story, something on social media. I think it was Nunchingila, head of Facebook Africa, and she was announcing a new, either a platform, and it was about really the e-commerce space in the context of what's been happening with COVID-19, but celebrating what's being done as a collective. And what I like is that much as it was an announcement of a new offering into the market, which will help shorten the distance between a producer and the end user, somebody in the thread, I think I came across it on Instagram initially, and then later on another platform, somebody in the thread said, "Wow, that is great. Are you able to do that for the spaza shops and the women in salons?" I think that for me was my highlight for the day, because somebody was saying, "I identify something so great. Is there a way that we can tell others about this?" And telling stories is so important, because it's not about announcing our great accolades and so forth, but storytelling should be about connecting needs to the ideal audiences. And somebody saying, "Wow, great platform, as a great brand, are you able to ensure that we leave nobody behind?" And that is what I know Africa to be. Africa stands tall and proud. And if you are able to see that collective approach to improvement and development, that's when we'll see things change. And of course, when I talk about data and storytelling, There's need for, digitization. Earlier on, somebody touched on the fourth industrial revolution, but really around how do we fast track where we are utilizing emerging technologies. And you're asking what we should be focusing on for quality change. A lot of what we could improve on, even in telling our stories, is archiving. Are we keeping documentation? Right now, opportunities are arising. Relief funds are being presented. And some of the requirements are simply share documentation that we have been in business. And because, unfortunately, in some instances, we were a bit more pedestrian, we're failing to present certain things quickly. We are now, and right now, we are all forced to pivot. And in pivoting, it means you need to hand over certain things, and you cannot hand over what is not organized, because now you're trying to multitask and hoard what you should be passing on. What we need to be doing well as bearers is being great conduits of content, of solutions, of answers. And if we can improve our documentation, we're able to tell our stories, we're able to track certain patterns because we've kept that information. We understand that our future is highly impacted by our history. And that is in the business sense, that is in any other sense. So for me, focusing on that is important, because as long as we understand that as women we are bearers, it means we should seek being fruitful. And being fruitful, requires a whole host of things similar to what I've just alluded to. And tapping into what we know as, and what simply comes naturally. I mean, being in Botswana, for instance, yes, the key focus in the past has been, our diamonds, travel. By travel, I mean tourism, agriculture, and so forth. And there are so many principles we can learn from that. Sorry, I'm having somebody knock very hard on my door. I'm gonna have to mute myself.
It's fine. It's fine. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay.
So I actually wanted to. I wanted you to also just perhaps pause there a little bit. So we literally have to wrap up in 10 minutes. And I just you've touched on a very important element that links to what I wanted to pose to Christine. A very important aspect that you've mentioned, Lo, in terms of women being bearers and precisely them understanding their role when they're inside those boards and they're sitting in board meetings and pretty much just occupying these, these roles, that you're just not there to fit into some gap or, just a tick box, but you've got to be able to make some form of impact. And I love how you've outlined the needs of what is it that you're solving, what are the problems, and how are you solving this? And if anybody had missed any other thing from what you've said, I hope that they really are able to at least outline these three things that you were able to share, which are very key. Christine, your world is a very important world. And you can tell this because Lo has mentioned part of what I was about to ask you about, archiving and documenting our story, which is directly linked to how Africa is viewed. But I slightly want to just add to you and perhaps ask about some of the experience you've had, because like I said earlier, you've been able to pretty much be a global citizen. What are some of the cultural ideals that you've came across with? And what do you think are a few things we can take? We're not saying we want to be like the rest, but what can we learn from what you've been exposed to that could pretty much work for Africa as a continent?
Right, thanks, Jabu. So like you said, Lolo has kind of touched up on the fact that it is absolutely crucial and necessary to have some sort of an archive system whereby we keep and preserve history, stories, and the truth, basically, to future generations, for future generations as well. I think in this case, for me personally, one of the things that has really inspired me to also go into storytelling would be the fact that you know, having grown up with my great grandmother, traditionally in Ethiopia, when you share stories, it's not done. It just doesn't happen, you know, without a ceremony, if I can put it like that. Basically, the coffee ceremonies are where, you know, neighbors, family, strangers gather, and everyone is around the coffee while waiting for it to boil, or passing around the popcorn or whatever it is. Everyone shares a story, news of the day, gossip, you know, jokes, and stuff like that. So having been able to grow up with that, I had always understood that the power of exchanging stories and the power of sharing stories is greater than knowing stories, because we can all learn from those things. And from there, I think the one experience that I think has really touched me would be having lived in a small village in Togo a couple of years ago, in Parime to be exact. I remember walking to a local library there where they had an array of African writers from Senegal, Mali, Ghana, Benin, Togo, you name it. And interestingly, speaking with the librarian, I understood that that library was actually, you know, put together by the colonials. So the French were the ones that had put it together. But going forward, it kind of remained as something that, you know, the future generations, the young Togolese of today, can actually go and consult. Sadly, the librarian was saying that, you know, they were not really that interested in going to the library, as opposed to, you know, those pool houses and the bars. But at least the infrastructure is there. And that's what I want to emphasize on. Being able to have a platform where you have written and documented history, stories that, you know, we can always go and consult and refer to is absolutely crucial. Now, in saying that, my journey as a storyteller and as a poet has opened my eyes to the fact that there are no African publishing houses as much as there are, you know, Western publishing houses. And I think that Ashaba was touching up on that earlier when she was saying that it's easier to be recognized by the outside world than it is to be recognized by Africa as an African. And interestingly, the number of you know, Africans that are willing to take a chance on other Africans is also very small. So as African professionals, how many of us are deliberately, cautiously, and actively seeking to hire African photographers, poets, MCs, DJs, architects, designers, interior designers, tailors, you name it. So it's a conscious work that we all need to be able to do. It's more than, you know, each one teach one. It's also, I think Pauline was the one that was referring to that earlier. It's really about, once you know that you are occupying this space that you're in, how many more of people like you can you bring in? People that would not otherwise have access to that platform that you have access to. And it's a conscious work that we really need to do. Now, going back to what I was saying about my great grandmother, those exchanges, learning about, you know, things that my father was doing when he was little, things that my grandma was doing when she was little, things that were not written in any form of way, but it was oral transmission. And I believe that a lot of our African, you know, traditions rely on oral transmission of customs, traditions, stories, and history, etc. Now, how do we, the generation of today, and storytellers like myself, now take on the responsibility of making sure that those stories are engraved somewhere and passed on to the next generation? And in that, I think that, you know, collaboration is definitely key. Making sure that, you know, me as a poet and a writer, that I also give access and, you know, the platform to other African storytellers and poets and writers as well. And I think the one thing, something that Ashaba mentioned earlier as well, more than just thinking that, you know, the next person that looks like you that's coming into that sphere that you're in is not an enemy, right? It's really about understanding that the more people that look like you are in the space that you're in, the more power that you have, because more people will be able to understand the stories that you're trying to put across, and at the same time, more stories like yours are going to be told. And a little highlight that I'd like to put in here is that we've all seen, and we're all used to having that one Black woman or one Black man in a poster for a university or a company or a marketing whatever. And we're more than tokens. We should be more than tokens. If there are billions of Africans, then there should be thousands of Africans actively working in professional spheres, and we all have the responsibility of making sure that we bring each other into these spaces as well. And I think to conclude, I'd like to say that I mentioned my grandma, but as women, I think that we are bearers, as Lolo was saying, but at the same time, I think that we already bear the weight of so much, and sometimes it's good to understand that making sure that you do things right for yourself is also something that you have the right to do. It is not your responsibility. The name of your country is not on your forehead. The name of your company is not on your forehead. The name of, whatever it is that you represent, like basically all I'm trying to say is you have the right to be you in the space that you're in. Be you as much as you can. We have been policed and controlled as women with everything around us. Don't do this, close your arms, close your legs, don't laugh too loud, don't, basically just too much of don't. And all I'm saying is just be you as much as you can. Sometimes the weight becomes too much, and, tell the stories from the heart.
Yeah. I mean, Christine, I'm an advocate of what you just said, and I think any other women here also is the same. Thank you so much for that. It's about time that women are themselves, and these are the same sentiments that Lo has been able to share, same sentiments that Ashaba started sharing when she started in the beginning. She was just herself getting into a sector. Pauline, I want you to wrap it up for us literally in 60 seconds. Sorry for the pressure, but I want you to help us look at what we can do, just as a wrap up, from an HR perspective in terms of addressing the gaps. I mean, the gaps are so huge. We can never fix Africa on our own. We can't, even though some issues have a lot to do with patriarchy, but as women, it's not our battle alone. So Africa doesn't just belong to us. We also just equal beings who are meant to be in the space and occupy it and enjoy it like anybody else. But perhaps from your world, what do you think we are still battling with in terms of competencies that are needed to help in terms of growing our continent? Just in brief, what can we do? What can we grow on? What should we focus on?
I'm really glad to hear the sentiments of the other panelists, because I think the first place where we need to start is actually understanding self. Yeah, I really like how Lolo summarized it. Understanding yourself, understanding your key strengths, understanding what kind of offering you can have and give to this world. Yeah, because I do a lot of leadership as well as career coaching, and I understand that is where the battle begins. Yeah, and that is the biggest trouble that we have, all of us as human beings, not just women, is the lack of understanding of what am I good at? What are my natural giftings? What can I do easily? The thing about even this season we are in COVID is because this season will take us back to asking ourselves those questions. Yeah, because we need to understand our natural giftings and our natural strengths, because that's how we were meant to present ourselves and how we were meant to contribute into this world. Yeah, so I think self-awareness, investing in self-awareness programs, coaching, understanding self, that is where we should start this journey. Yeah, because once you understand yourself, you can understand what kind of contribution you can put in. Because I am a true believer, like Lolo said, her reference point is the Bible, mine too. I am a true believer that we were all gifted with a natural gifting. God was very kind to each one of us. So the thing is, understand what you're good at, nurture that talent, whatever talent it is, because that's the thing. And sorry, you can see my daughter. That's why I've been keeping off the video.
Oh, fine. We used
but
to
I've
those
finished
Zoom, Zoom world has.
off with her there. I'll finish it off. Yeah,
Okay.
so I think we should invest more in coaching ourselves to understand ourselves. But in terms of competencies that will take us to levels where we can now start influencing, I think leadership is a key competence for everybody in whichever area, if it's in journalism, if it's in business, understanding how to bring out the best from others, and actually influencing others is a critical competence. So self-awareness, leadership, competency, and this is not just leadership, how you can be able to inspire other people to move to where you want them to be, or even when they thought that they wouldn't get into. So you need to be able to inspire others to move forward, and to change. And I really like what I think Christine said. You need to be able to mentor others, to become even better than you. The sign of a leader is the number of people you've been able to develop. It's not you being at the top. It's the number of people who can follow you. And then the other thing is skills are critical. So the thing of running away from technology, that's unfortunately the past. So we need to embrace it. We gotta embrace it. And then technical is whichever path that you decide you're going to follow, be the best that you can be in that area. And that's what I was telling you. For me, I tell everybody, start there. Start in your area. If you're in communications, be the best communication person. And then change, ability to just adapt. Keep readapting, changing, reinventing yourself, repackaging. So for me, I was in HR for 21 years, mainstream. And then I've repackaged myself. Now I'm a leadership and an executive career coach. I still do a bit of HR, still consulting. So are you able to re-engineer and repackage yourself? With the time. And I like what you're doing, Jabu, because you're repackaging also. So those are the few things I can talk about.
Yeah, trust me, it's not easy. Thank you so much, Pauline, for that. So we've run over, and I'm sorry for that. But there's something that really hit me hard during the session as we were talking, and that's how, number one, we can have all the great ideas and really spearhead the most amazing projects as women or just as Africans. But there's a lot we still need to fix in our continent that's not necessarily ideal. We still struggle with infrastructure. We still struggle with the internet. We still struggle to have a decent conversation on a platform using Zoom. So as much as we have these challenges, I also like a very interesting aspect that came in where Lo was able to come in and take a lead. And I think perhaps out of all things, if Africans can learn that skill, the skill that says, I am not a threat to you. If anything, I am your helper. I am here to collaborate with you. We can go a long way as, not just as women, but just as Africans, because the conversation was able to run without me there, because we are able to share these elements. And I think at the core of us as women in Africa, you look at the future of work for women in Africa, you look at just the nature of how women are perceived and really being embraced in societies, different societies in Africa. We still have a long way to go, because some of the problems are not our problems, but it doesn't mean we need to embrace these problems, even though we didn't create them. And I truly love and appreciate every single thing that was able to come out today. I know we need 10 hours, I know. We probably need even better, we need a face-to-face. I wish we can have in fact, if I had a way, we would do this together face-to-face in a proper thing. But I think the idea is to begin the conversation. It has surely not ended, but we've been able to plant that seed for those who perhaps feel they can take it further. They should feel free to take it further. What's important is for us in each sphere of where we operate and function to really just spark that light, spark that hope, plant that seed. And it's been tough, but I'm glad we were able to do this. I cannot promise that we might not meet again. I have a feeling we might have to take 2 of this, but we'll see. let's get to a sense of how the people receive it. But I think we may have to give them a different leaf again from this. But I do appreciate what we've been able to do. And we've definitely planted that seed for Africa from today. If any of you have any remarks maybe that you want to make before we close, or if not, we can just wrap it up. No?
Ajabu?
Yes.
Yes. I'm just going to keep it very, very short. Okay, no, not very, very short, but short. This is something I would like to share as we've been focusing on Africa, and earlier on based on the level of intensity with which, you know, the expression was made around Africa and why we're not doing certain things and so forth. We recently were celebrating or were seeing celebrations of Africa Day all over the world. Lovely visuals, lovely codes and so forth and so forth. I just want to share one quote, and it was by President Kwame Nkrumah in his first speech at the Foundation Summit of the Organization of African Unity in Addis Ababa, 24th of May, 1963. And he says, and note the tone in which this is said: we shall accumulate machinery and establish steelworks, iron foundries and factories. We shall link the various states of our continent with communications. We shall astound the world with our hydroelectric power. We shall drain marshes and swamps, clear infested areas, feed the undernourished, and rid our people of parasites and disease. It is within the possibility of science and technology to make even the Sahara bloom into a vast field with verdant vegetation for agricultural and industrial developments. 1963. We're talking about Africa as women. And this was said, he was not saying, I wish, I think, I feel. He said, we shall. So it's important as women, as we reclaim, you know, our voice, and we exert what we'd like to see happen, do that with greater conviction. But 3 things I just want to say: do not shrink into shame, stretch out your faith, stretch out your creativity, stretch out your ability to solve problems. And lastly, embrace diversification as an individual, as a country, as a continent. Be open for new. Thank you.
Yeah.
Look, I wish we could just go on because it's so clear that we are passionate about our continent, and it is so clear that we have purposed ourselves quite solidly into who we are as African women. And I really hope and pray that this clip, despite the glitches, will reach as many young Black African women as possible across all corners of the continent, and that they will be able to listen to each of you and all the insights that you've been able to share, and that somehow those insights will begin to manifest and change their thinking, because that's our greatest, the mindset. And you guys have all just tapped into that, the mind field, because I don't think once it's in the mind that we can have issues. So thank you once again. I think we'll just have to end it here for now. We can talk about the future some other time, but Ashaba, you muted. Did you want to say something? I see you, yes.
Oh my God, I've been talking all
60 seconds. It's a good thing. So in 60 seconds, Ashaba, 60 seconds.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I would just like to add that what Lolo said, and also complete with what I was saying, is that we all have a role to play in this. And if you're being given a platform, or if you're in a higher position, you can be the voice to those who are voiceless, and you can use that position to be able to influence, but also inspire. And one of the things that I wanted to add is that I know whenever people are talking, they always forget the women in rural areas. And like Lolo said, we all have a purpose, and you have to find out your purpose. And for me, my purpose has been reaching out to these people who are forgotten and making sure that they also on the same platform as the ladies who have the technology, who have better education and everything like that. So we all have a purpose to play. I believe God put us here, each and every one of us, with a purpose to leave a world a better place than we found it, and we all have to tap into it. And we know that our uniqueness is what is going to bring us, inspiration and be able to inspire others, but we all have a role to play and we can all help each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Botswana, Lo from Botswana, thank you so much. Christine, I keep saying Ethiopia. It doesn't matter, because to me, you just global, because you never know, you just travel all over the place. Thank you so much. And the fact that you're able to connect with us, thank you so much as well from London. Pauline from Kenya, Uganda, Ashaba, thank you. And the friends of Millennial Dialogue and the supporters of the speakers of Millennial Dialogue, my gratitude is so wide. I thank you all so much. Until next time, let's keep feeding Africa. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.